MrBeast, one of the largest creators on YouTube, has found himself in a little bit of hot water recently, to say the least. From the deplorable behavior of Kris Tyson to the surfacing allegation of scams, illegal lotteries, and mistreatment of contestants, recipients, and employees exposed by former employees like Dogpack404, it seems like it just keeps getting worse for one of YouTube's most prized darlings. However, I'm not here to talk about really much of that at all, because plenty of other people are covering it to death. I wouldn't want to just be making the same video as everyone else. What I really wanted to talk about today is why the MrBeast channel, the corporation, is not actually doing charity. Full disclosure, I will not be bashing Jimmy or anyone previously mentioned in the MrBeast video. I think in the spirit of charity, that approach would be pretty uncharitable. This video's purpose is not to be a drama video, but to discuss a particular philosophical lens for why MrBeast channel is not a charity. I will not be taking a primarily economic stance that other people have mentioned, though I think it is somewhat relevant to bring up. If that interests you, I would highly recommend watching until the end of this video. If not, though, you can click on any of the other MrBeast is Done videos that are in the sidebar. My personal recommendation would be to check out the Actman's recent video because he covered it pretty comprehensively. Charity. This has been the largest offense I've seen from MrBeast's supporters. That yes, all of these recent allegations and controversies are bad, but it doesn't take away from the fact that he's done positive things. And if you look at it from a surface level, it may seem that way. Some individuals might have better lives now than they did before because they met MrBeast. Prominent examples would be the cataract surgeries or the water wells in Africa. I do not doubt that some of these people have improved lives by those actions. However, I do doubt how much charity is going on in the literal and spiritual sense. As someone who's just a guy on the internet, I try to keep certain aspects of my personal life a little more private. I know many other big YouTubers who are incredibly generous in the amount of charity they do for their parishes, synagogues, and local communities. Many of these people will never get an ounce of recognition from the public square, and quite honestly, that's okay. Because for most people, there's something deeper going on about why the charity is done. I think in the internet age, when everything is moving so fast we can barely keep track of what's going on during the day, it's valuable to take a step back and go to the classical thinkers who have tackled these questions ages before us. A wise man once told me, never let an opportunity to talk about Dante slip by, and that's exactly what I'll be doing today. I'm going to do this because Dante and I both belong to the largest and greatest charitable organization in the history of human civilization, the Catholic Church. See, it's in the final work of one of Italy's greatest poets that we can find one of the clearest definitions of charity. I've covered how this guy has inspired some works that I enjoy myself, but that was only based on his most famous piece, The Inferno. Dante's Inferno is a distorted and graphic depiction about what the bowels of selfishness look like. However, many don't read beyond the Inferno, often forgetting it's an integral piece of what could be considered the best trilogy in fiction. After Dante travels through hell, he journeys up Mount Purgatory and ascends through heaven. And it is at this final stop on his journey that I would like to take this discussion. While Inferno and Purgatorio have so many good and wonderful topics to discuss, Paradiso is my favorite. As a culmination of Dante's life as a poet, you see the best and sometimes most incomprehensible imagery become vividly displayed. While the previous two entries tackled the consequences and purification of the 7 deadly sins, lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride, Paradiso focuses on the inverse, the 4 cardinal virtues, prudence, courage, justice, and temperance, and the 3 theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity. Dante's incredible journey is a focal point for many philosophical discussions from Aristotle to Aquinas, among which the most clear and important are the topics of virtue. The greatest of all virtues is charity. So to determine if what MrBeast is doing is real charity, we first need to define what a virtue is. Virtue is a habitual and firm disposition to do the good. It allows a person to not only perform good acts, but to give the best of himself. A virtuous person tends toward the good with all his sensory and spiritual power. He pursues the good and chooses it in concrete action. Love is the greatest of all virtues and intrinsically tied to charity. Virtues inherently involve other people and a spiritual creator, so we should love our neighbors as ourselves for the love of that creator. Even in the pagan world of ancient Greece, Aristotle had this concept beginning to form when he talked about the 4 types of love. Eros, the love of passion; philia, the love of friends; storge, the love of parents towards children; and agape, the love of mankind. Agape is the type of love we should look at for this discussion. Love is often defined as willing the good of another, but how does one do that? One possible way is through acts of charity. Charity tends to include the caveat of self-sacrifice for someone else. The act of giving oneself for the sake of another is love, the agape. The philosophy of Aristotle was woven into the threads connecting many of Dante's works. The Divine Comedy concludes with an entire cantica of love. Love, the force that can move the sun and the other stars. The constant use of the Italian word amor at pivotal moments throughout the story is evidence of this. However, carita, the Italian word for charity, is used much more sparsely, and particularly when Dante has to define what charity actually means. After witnessing and defining the other 6 virtues, Dante is blinded and then questioned by St. John the Evangelist about the meaning of charity in the 26th canto of Paradiso. Dante uses his physical blindness in this moment to represent how charity should be done. Removing one of his 5 senses is a physical representation of the self-sacrifice needed for charity, but also the blind will of heart that one must have to do charity. When you give to many charitable causes, you are never 100% sure where exactly that money is going. This is a large problem for certain exploitative religious communities or greedy corporations. And while all merely human institutions are corruptible by sin, having your charitable actions be based on something higher than your own self-interest or vainglory is absolutely necessary to understanding how charity is a theological virtue. The relationship that one has with your fellow man and the Creator has to be blind of false forms of love that can distract your mind. As Dante puts it, turn the human heart to God, all run as one with my own charity, my being, and the being of the world, the death that he sustained so that I might live, the hope that all with me confess in faith, the living knowledge that I've spoken of, all drew me from the waves of wrongful love and set me on the shores of righteousness.
One of the greatest signs of charity to our neighbor is to transmit him the truth. Of course, with love, not imposing to him, but with love, but transmitting him this, sharing with him. This is one of the greatest signs of charity.
Once concentrated on God, charity can be understood to be a contemplation and a vision that brings delight at the presence of the divine and permits us a union of friendship with the purpose for that divine. This is exactly why I wanted to focus on this specific canto of a 700-year-old poem, because that's a very clear definition of what charity is. Charitable acts have a presence in the physical world, but also supernatural effects. A purely secular worldview when it comes to charity does not benefit the soul. That perspective doesn't inherently recognize the beauty inside a fellow human being that Dante expresses when his blindness is cured and Beatrice is revealed to him once again. Charity's nature, as the most important of all virtues, encapsulates faith, hope, and the other cardinal virtues. They all build off of each other. Let's wrap this back around to MrBeast. For the aforementioned reasons, I do not believe what MrBeast is doing on his channel could actually be considered charity. While the MrBeast Corporation would never claim to explicitly be a charity, the entire public persona of the brand is about charity. This is how the channel for a long time has been able to deflect a large amount of criticism. While I do think some of the previous criticisms, especially the kind that are made from BreadTube, are a bit mean-spirited and unwarranted, people are now coming to realize that the motives behind this channel are a bit more malicious than previously thought. By willingly creating charity events to create a successful business and earn more money from the charity than the amount actually given away, one might claim that his priorities are a bit disordered in the most literal sense of the term. So it's easy for us to say what's wrong with the MrBeast brand, but I think a constructive thing to discuss would be how to mend it. I wouldn't say totally fix it. There are things that he can do that would bring it in the right direction. And I want to see channels with themes and positive messages succeed on YouTube. That was part of the reason I moved this channel's direction towards positive material. Public acts of charity do, to some degree, inspire other people, so he needs to focus in on the clear purpose of his charity if he's going to make it public. But before that, though, at the time of writing this script, MrBeast has not made a single formal apology about the Kris Tyson situation or the Dogpack 404 allegations. Jimmy really has a chance to show us his character with how he responds. Obviously, he's going to need the facts, the receipts, the legal advice to make a good case to the audience. But I'm more interested in him doing a bit of self-reflection. Frequently from the darkest moments, people can really humble themselves in ways that you wouldn't really expect. And I think Jimmy might be in that position now where he can take a look at the mirror and really address what is he doing this for? The love of his fellow man, and by proxy a creator, or just for himself? One route is selfless, while the other is selfish. I don't say that scornfully, as many people have been blasting him for a myriad of these issues, but I say this sorrowfully, knowing that if I were in the same position as him, I would pretty easily be corrupted by such things like greed, vainglory, etc. I will continue to pray for him and all the people who may have been wronged by him and his associates' past actions. Hey, but this is YouTube, where brain rot content has taken over, and people willing to stop for a moment and think about the nuances and deeper implications in such situations are being left behind by an algorithm seeking more dopamine-inducing sources of clicks. The whole point of me making this video is to show you a new perspective on acts of charity. And this could be a generational shift in the YouTube landscape. As YouTube has gotten much more safe, there is a certain benefit it has to keep MrBeast at number one. The brand safety veneer to the advertisers is that charity is the number one thing on YouTube, but that's starting to wear off, so we could be on the precipice of another adpocalypse. But for the foreseeable future, I will continue making content about things that are on my mind, and I want to share with you, like this very video. I do hope you enjoyed it and learned something. Please leave your thoughts down in the comments below. I promise the next video will be less theologically heavy, because I know these deeper discussions about the minutia of Dante are pretty niche. God bless, and I'll see you all next time.